Picture this. You wake up, grab your phone, and every screen in your house is flashing red with breaking news. Every radio station abruptly cuts out. Suddenly, government offices across Europe are thrown into absolute lockdown protocol. Overnight, a country that most of us think of as just the quiet, bureaucratic center of the continent has become the epicenter of a shock invasion. So let's play this out. What if Belgium faces a sudden, unprovoked invasion? We're talking about the land that hosts the heart of the European Union, the headquarters of NATO, and the diplomatic machinery of modern Europe, suddenly turning into a battlefield. It sounds like a movie plot, right? I mean, we live in an age built on complex treaties and alliances. But here's the reality. Treaties do not guarantee absolute safety. And the absolute most dangerous crises, they always start where nobody expects them. The crazy thing about modern conflict is that it moves way, way faster than bureaucracy. In those immediate aftermath hours, it's just pure chaos. The truth of the invasion would spread like wildfire through satellites, drones, and shaky smartphone footage long before official statements could even be drafted. Before leaders can even get on TV to impose airspace restrictions or officially lock down borders, the digital alarms are already blaring. You'd instantly see highways filling up, traffic totally freezing, and emergency alerts pushing panicking people away from critical zones.
Which brings us to Section 1, the shock and chaos and the immediate paralysis that sets in.
The sheer speed of this escalation is staggering. Think about this timeline. At exactly 1 minute in, intelligence systems and digital alarms are triggered. Within just 1 hour, we're seeing frantic border and airspace lockdowns. And by 12 hours, you've got continental emergency meetings convening in Washington, Paris, London, Berlin. The Belgian government in Brussels is instantly thrown into raw crisis management. The psychological shock of the capital of Europe being under literal threat would echo across the entire continent, creating a completely surreal atmosphere.
The very first question everyone would be asking is simple but terrifying. Who would dare do this? Belgium is so deeply embedded in the international system. This wouldn't just be some localized territorial dispute. It's an attack on peace, coordination, and the entire post-war order. It is a direct strike on the very concept of peace that Europe built from the ground up after the destruction of the 20th century.
Moving beyond the politics, let's look at Section 2. Europe's logistical heart and the resulting infrastructure crisis. Because look, Belgium isn't just politically important, it is operationally absolutely critical. It's this incredibly compact, densely connected hub packed with infrastructure that ties together France, Germany, the Netherlands, and the North Sea. So a logistics network under siege here, it instantly freezes modern Europe's circulatory system. If the highways are blocked, trade grinds to a halt. If massive hubs like the port of Antwerp or vital shipping routes are disrupted, global supply chains are going to feel immense pressure. Energy grids, industrial zones, all threatened. This isn't just a military event. It's literally a structural heart attack for the entire European economy. And the crucial takeaway here comes down to a single number, 0. As in, zero commerce would remain unaffected. The economic impact would be brutal, and it would happen instantly. We're talking shockwaves rippling through global markets, shipping insurance rates going through the roof, and terrified investors fleeing to safer assets. Any business worldwide that relies on European supply chains would be staring down the barrel of massive, immediate delays. Okay, moving on to Section 3, the NATO and EU crisis and the massive institutional fallout. This scenario presents a dual nightmare for the continent. On one side, you have NATO. Their primary test here is literal military and security credibility. I mean, if they can't protect their own headquarters and trigger the core collective defense principle of Article 5, the entire alliance is called into question, right? Their key response has to be instant emergency coordination and massive deterrence. Then on the other side, you have the European Union facing a test of its integration and philosophical survival. The EU is built on the fundamental idea that wars of conquest are a thing of the past. Their response would mean severe economic punishment and a total diplomatic freeze. Both of these massive institutions would be staring right at the potential collapse of their foundational assumptions. Militarily speaking, the consequences would unfold in distinct waves. Wave 1 is that immediate, chaotic defensive reaction. Wave 2 brings the rapid mobilization of Belgian defense forces and vital allied support kicking in. But Wave 3, that's where the dynamics really shift. That's the political trap of occupation, where the attacker realizes that taking European soil triggers an unstoppable countdown to crippling sanctions and a fully unified coalition response. But all of this raises a terrifying ambiguity. What is the attacker's actual objective here? Are they aiming for Brussels itself? Are they trying to secure the North Sea coast? Or is this purely about symbolic humiliation, just to force Europe into concessions? Military planners absolutely despise ambiguity. When intentions are unclear, every single move risks massive escalation. Both sides end up mobilizing blindly just out of fear of the other's next move. It turns a localized shock into a full-blown continental crisis in the blink of an eye. Which leads us into Section 4, the reality of occupation, essentially a slow nightmare. See, an invasion begins with incredible speed, but occupation is a slow, grueling nightmare. An invading force might gain that temporary tactical surprise, sure, but trying to hold territory right in the heart of Europe under the eyes of the entire world? That's an entirely different story. The moment occupation begins, a relentless countdown to international isolation starts. The deeper the attacker digs in, the more costly the adventure becomes back home, inviting extreme pressure and global condemnation. And the human cost? Absolutely devastating. Civilian panic would instantly clog up all the escape routes, which actually makes military movement even harder. Communication networks would completely overload as millions of people try to reach their loved ones. Hospitals would be pushed right to the brink, dealing with urgent food, fuel, and medical shortages. Plus, Belgium has a highly complex, multilingual society. You wouldn't see passive victimhood here. You'd see a deeply resilient, highly organized civic resistance that would completely deny the attacker the psychological victory they were banking on. And because Belgium is the nerve center of the European communication system, you'd see an instant explosion of information warfare. It becomes attacker propaganda versus official security truth. The aggressor would totally flood the zone with rumors, right? Trying to justify the invasion, trying to fracture public morale. Meanwhile, Belgian and allied authorities are in this frantic race against fear, desperately trying to issue real security guidance and appeals for calm. In a crisis moving this fast, tone and truth are literally matters of life and death. Finally, let's zoom out to Section 5, the geopolitical chain reaction and its global implications. There's a quote that captures the historical weight of this perfectly. History has a habit of returning where least expected. We kind of forget that Belgium has historically been this massive battleground for great powers. A modern scenario like this completely shatters the illusion that Europe is permanently post-conflict, post-border obsession, and post-conquest. It proves the old truths of geography and power never really disappear, and that even small countries can still become incredibly large, tragic symbols. So, what happens globally? Well, the scramble is real. Leaders are rapidly calling allies to coordinate. Global markets are trembling. Soldiers are mobilizing instantly to contain the crisis before it sparks a wider war. Citizens everywhere are demanding reassurance from their governments. But perhaps the most permanent impact is that last point. Defense budgets permanently rise. The security assumptions of the entire planet would change overnight. And that leaves us with one final chilling question. If Belgium, the political, diplomatic, and logistical heart of Europe, can be hit, who is really safe? If a shock invasion can test the very core of our post-war architecture, then the whole illusion of permanent global security is just broken. It proves our seemingly stable world can completely unravel with just one wrong move at the wrong time. It forces all of us to look at the map and realize nothing is quite as certain as we thought. Think about that for a while. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and I'll catch you next time.